Hello everybody, my name is Sana. I am a doctoral student in third year at the INSEM of Casablanca under the direction of Mr. Mazoudi Mohammed under the team heuristic method to optimize unloading of large containers vessel in the port of Casablanca. It is a great pleasure to participate in the 9th edition of the International Network of Research and Training. During my presentation, I follow this plan. I start with introduction and mathematical formulation. Then we represent constants of model, and I explain the genetic algorithm and verification of unloading constants. And in the end, we present experimental results and literature related to Casablanca-Morocco problem and the conclusion. A container terminal constitutes an essential intermodal interference for the global transport network. The competitiveness of a port is measured by the efficiency of its terminals. Also, the Casablanca-Morocco problem plays an essential role in the port container terminal management paradigm, as it is closely related to the berthing time of a ship. It is obvious that the port of Casablanca is the second port in Morocco. It receives about 1,000 ships every year, and the port receives containers vessels loaded and unloaded with more than 70,000. Our objective is to have an optimal planification of Casablanca in order to have minimal berthing time. We present mathematical formulation. The Casablanca problem we have studied has the following characteristic: containers unloading is in a single vessel. All Casablanca move on the same track and need to work without any interference between them. A crane is assigned to a bay and can work in another bay before it has finished unloading containers in the current bay. Finally, each bay is handled by at most one crane at a time. It is in this study, the crane travel time between bays is ignored as it is very short compared to the unloading time. Then we present notation. We start with G index for bay. CG is a number of containers in bay G, and the Q number of K-cranes. E index for K-crane, and the P number of bays. TC time to unload a container by a K-crane and put it in the shortage. It is supposed to be the same for all containers in all bays. Then we present decision variables. We have 4 decision variables: XGE equal to 1 if bay G is handled by K-crane E, and equal to 0 otherwise. For EG equal to 1 if the unloading of bay G finished before starting to unloading BG, and equal to 0 otherwise. For GG is the completion time of bay G. Cmax is max bay. For the modeling of objective function, our objective is to minimize Cmax subject to 9 constants that we explain later. For constants of our model, we have 7 constants. Constant number 1 is the objective function that serves to minimize the latest completion time among all bays. Constant 2 ensures that each bay can be handled by at least one K-crane. Constant 3 ensures that the completion time is bigger than working time in each bay. Working time equal to number of constants plus time needed to unload a container and store it. For a constant 4 shows when G finishes before by G, started, and the constraint 5 show the opposite. Constraint 6 avoids the interference between the K crans. And in the end, constraint 7 defines the Cmax value. Then we present a resolution of the model. We use heuristic method, algorithm genetic. This diagram explains the objective of using this approach. We start with two variables. That means two individuals, individual 1 and individual 2. It symbolizes the parents, and we try to apply two operations, crossover and mutation. Then we have two children, and we have a new population. This population give us optimal solutions. Before applying algorithm genetic, we must verify allowed constraints. We start with no crossing. It means the first step is a test of interference which identifies the two crans which are candidates to allow the bay in the cran gene. We keep the cran whose last position is immediately at the left of or the right of this current bay. For our example, K-cran2 and K-cran3 can handled by 6 without interference with K-cran1. Then we move to make span. Among this, two cran, we choose the one which is available sooner. In the case of equality, that means if the two cran have the same completion time, then we go to step 3. For distance, if not cran has been chosen in step 2, with the time criteria, we assign the current bay to the nearest cran. In the case of equality, if the two crans are at unequal distance from the bay, we choose the cran at the left with the smallest index, the distance between by 6. For assignments, assign bay 6 to K-cran3, update the position of K-cran3 and the associated completion time, then update the current gene. In the chromosome gene 2, then bay 9 in our example. Repeat the 4 steps until all bay are assigned to one K-cran. In the end, we present experimental results. In the lecture, we solved the same instance using simplex and dynamic programming. Small and large size instances were generated randomly, and container number also generated in a random way between 10 and 50 containers. In this case, we add the genetic algorithm result time as shown in this table. Then for algorithm genetic, we make our objective function optimal. Then, like a conclusion, the results presented in this article show that the genetic algorithm gives quickly good solution, better than dynamic programming, especially for large instances, to further improve the quality of solutions in terms of execution time and convergence towards the optimal solution. Other types of meta-heuristic deserve to be tested, like ant colony. Then we present a lecture related to K-cran Shidalin problem in order to have a birthing time of vessel in order to have a minimal birthing time of the vessel in a pore. We start with improving the productivity of a terminal by addressing the problem of container loading, and the K-clan taking into account the no crossing constraint. After we find the K-Cran-Shidalen problem in unidirectional and the reduced inactivity time of Cran, then we find the K-Cran-Shidalen problem taking into account the interference that can occur between the crans. And in the last, we find unidirectional K-Cran-Shidalen problem. Thank you for your attention.